off the plan.
And now I want to turn to our exclusive this morning with special guest. He is the man who broke the Bank of England with George Soros, and now he is speaking out against what he calls generational theft. He's Stan Druckenmiller, founder and former CEO of Duquesne Capital Management. Stan, when you and I sat down in the spring, you urged everyone to start focusing on this idea of generational theft. You went on to speak at your own school, Bowdoin College, and you really rocked the campus, warning students that they need to pay attention to the fact that senior citizens could be stealing their money. You're about to embark on a full-on college tour. Why is this so important?
It really solidified to me during the sequester period when the whole debate was going on about cutting government spending and our fiscal issues. And that's when I first came to understand the lack of knowledge on this topic, not just from seniors, but future seniors. And if you listen to the sequester debate and spending and where the debt is, I find it inconceivable that they didn't know the facts, including, I would be surprised if the president knew the facts, given the statements he was making. During the sequester, you may remember, he said, we're not going to balance the budget on the backs of our seniors. And if you look at the situation where we are today, seniors have doing very, very, very well for the last 35 years. And it's been a remarkable accomplishment, actually. And because they've been doing well, the poverty rate among seniors is down from 35 to 9%. But their wealth has also increased dramatically. And looking forward, we have a very tough picture because of demographic situation. Seniors about to explode as a portion of the population, and the benefits we've promised them, there's no way to cover them given the current situation we have.
Stan, in many ways, the facts speak for themselves, and you've brought charts to help illustrate the points that you're making. Here's the net lifetime benefits by age. Clearly, if you're not born yet, you're going to be in deep trouble come the future. Why is it, do you believe, so many people are so tragically uninformed, ignorant of these facts? Do you blame the voters themselves for ignoring these issues and favoring short-term concerns, or do you put the blame at the feet of politicians in Washington, or both?
I'd say both. You know, this is a country of special interests, as we all know. As we all know, old people vote, or seniors vote very consistently. Young people don't. Young people have other interests than, say, their future economic situation at the age of 20. I sure did. They're not necessarily focusing on this stuff at that point in time.
So part of what you're doing, it sounds to me, is encouraging, once these younger people have the information that you feel they need to have, get them out to the ballot box and vote with their consciences?
Oh, it won't be their consciences. They should be mad as hell. But let me also say, part of what I'm doing is to inform seniors of the situation.
Do they care? They're getting the money.
I'm sure they care, Stephanie. Maybe some don't. But I would bet a lot of money that 85% of seniors today, if they knew the numbers we're going to go over, they wouldn't be comfortable with this is what they were leaving to their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren.
What numbers? What are you uncomfortable about?
Okay, can we go to We're a Nation of Takers? Do you have that chart?
We do. Let's pull it up.
Okay, so I want to, let's first set the table looking at what's going on in the last 35 years. And then I want to get into the demographic problem and why it gets so scary from here and why I don't understand the current dialogue that's taking place over this situation, because it's completely uninformed. This chart up on the screen is federal government entitlement transfers as a percent of the federal government budget outlays. And as you can see, if you go back to 1960, when I was 7 years old, about 28% of federal budget government outlays were transfer payments, or what we call entitlements. That number has gone up to 72% over this 35-year period. Now, the problem with that, first of all, the good news on that, as I said, seniors are much better off. It's been a tremendous accomplishment. Poverty rate is way down for seniors. But these are transfer payments, and there's no productive investment or no looking to the future coming out of this. And if you look at how we got from 28% to 70%, almost all of that money went to the elderly. If you took an elderly person back in 1960, 28% of federal government outlays per capita went, 40% of government outlays per capita went to them. That number is 71%. Where did that come out of? It came out of children. It came out of investments in things like education, infrastructure, things like that. And that crowding out effect creates a problem going forward because these are not productive investments.
And we haven't even gotten to the point yet where baby boomers, for the most part, are retired, beginning to collect their entitlement checks and programs.
Yeah, before we get to the demographics, can we put up the wealth chart?
The change in average net worth by age group?
Yeah.
Let's pull that up. Stan, since you've started all this, though, when you're putting out these numbers, you started having this conversation in the spring. What kind of response are you getting? What are the Mark Zuckerbergs of the world who are influential with young people? What are they saying?
Well, the answer is I don't know. Jeff Canada and I, who's my partner in the Harlem Children's Zone, well, I'm sort of just the tag along, but we went up to Bowdoin College just to see where this went. First of all, after your show, I had a number of people contact me, which was unexpected. I didn't really know where it was going to go.
A lot of people watch this show, Stan.
Well, apparently. I certainly do. So we went up to Bowdoin College and we gave a presentation just trying to outline the facts of what we're looking at the next 30 or 40 years. And the response was overwhelming. So based on that, we're going to do about 10 to 12 colleges in the next 2 months. And I'll check back to you what the response is. Mr. Zuckerberg is obviously right now more focused on immigration than on this stuff.
All right, well, should we go back? Let's look at this net worth by age group.
Yeah, because I think this is really important in shaping the debate. We've always heard this term, you don't want to leave the next generation with less than the current generation. This chart, when it was first shown to me, and it's from the Federal Reserve Board survey of consumer finances, is kind of shocking. Because of the previous chart I showed, where these transfer payments have gone primarily to the elderly and they've been substantial, look at what's happened. If you are a 29 to a 37-year-old in this country, your net worth is less than a 29 to a 37-year-old was in 1983. This is a staggering statistic. So this is the first generation where a 30-year-old is worth, literally, his net worth is less than his parents. But if you look at the older people, their net worth has doubled over this time period, again, because all this money has been transferred.
Stan, I have to ask you, though, do you not worry, let's go back to Bowdoin for a second, because do you not worry that people look at you, Stan Druckenmiller, and say, you know, here's a middle-class kid from Pittsburgh who went to Bowdoin, pretty fancy New England college, made $1 billion as a financial speculator.
It's technical.
Why should I listen to him?
Well, immodestly, the way I would answer that is the way I made my money in the industry wasn't necessarily in stocks. I made most of my money in the bond and the currency markets, trying to forecast future economic trends and problems that I saw happening. And one thing that I'm not very proud of is if you look at my record, the big years were in bear markets and chaos. I tend to take great advantage of catastrophes happening in the marketplace. In other words, for whatever reason, maybe I have a dysfunctional personality, I was good at looking around corners and predicting them. And this is much longer in time frame, but it's the easiest layup I have ever seen of something we got to address and a problem we got to deal with.
That is a great answer. We'll have
my record speaks for itself on forecasting.
Well, that much is true. We're going to have more with this exclusive conversation with Duquesne Capital Management founder and former CEO Stanley Druckenmiller right here on Market Makers. You're watching Market Makers. I'm Erik Schatzker, and if you're just tuning in, Steph and I are having a terrific conversation with Stanley Druckenmiller, the founder and former CEO of Duquesne Capital Management, a legend in the hedge fund industry. And joining us from Washington, our Washington editor, Al Hunt. Al, Stan has been making a very persuasive case for what he believes is a looming catastrophe in entitlement spending. But clearly, he's not the first investor or billionaire to sound the alarm over the irresponsibility of the federal and state governments, or the folly, for that matter, of short-sighted promises. What I want to know, Al, is anybody down there listening to people like Stan, listening to people like Erskine Bowles, these people who clearly have a very strong case to make, but somehow it just seems to be falling on too many deaf ears?
Well, yeah, there are a lot of people who are listening, but you can't get a consensus on what should be done, even though I think that consensus should be rather obvious. And what the Congress instead has done is gone in many ways in a counterproductive opposite direction. They are cutting defense spending and discretionary domestic spending with this dreadful sequester. Those are both unwise cuts, and what then don't really address the chronic long-term issue that Stan's talking about. And what they should do instead is focus on entitlement reforms, which would include some cutbacks in Social Security and Medicare. I may not agree with everything it stands for, but would agree with much of it. Obama's endorsed some of it, and it's got to involve a little bit of reasonable revenue increases. That should be easy. In this town, it's not.
Stan, we're talking about going opposite directions. You supported President Obama in 2008. What's changed for you?
Well, I was drinking the hope and change Kool-Aid. I thought he was a younger generation. I think by hindsight, looking back, he probably needed more experience for this job. I also thought he would be more Clinton-like and move to the center, and clearly he hasn't.
Al, Stan Druckenmiller is hardly the only member of the financial community whom President Obama lost in the last election, yet it didn't stop him from beating Mitt Romney. Can the Democratic Party count on the kind of support that it had, and certainly the great ground game that it ran the next time around?
Yeah, it depends on who the candidate is. Depends on what the country's conditions are at that time, Eric. I can't tell you what's going to happen in the Senate or House if they vote on Iraq in 2 weeks, much less what's going to happen in 3 years. Stan's got a problem, though. I understand exactly what he's saying, but he's got a problem with the Republican Party, too, because they not only have not moved to the center, they probably moved a little bit further right. So that really, I think, epitomizes the dysfunction. I don't know what a guy who cares a lot about these issues like Stan Druckenmiller does.
Well, I'm an independent, and I'm just hoping one candidate on either side in 2016 shows up. But let me ask you the question, because Eric asked you a great question about Washington pay attention to this problem. We showed a slide earlier where the unborn are going to receive, given current tax schedules and current entitlement benefits, they're going to be a net payer of $400,000 more than they're going to take in terms of payments from the government, whereas the average 65-year-old today is going to take in $325,000 more. This is a terrific study that was commissioned by the Can Kicks Back, a group of young kids, through one of my favorite economists, Larry Kotlikoff, in Massachusetts. But how in the world does anyone in Washington think it's fair, because all I hear is fair and balanced, not just on a certain network, but from all the politicians, that a current senior should get $700,000 net more than a future senior? What is fair about that?
Well, it's not only not fair, Stan, but it can't be sustained. And what I think, though, is that people sometimes neglect that, at least in the medium term, the fix is not that painful. It's not like you have to take away grandma's Social Security. It's not like you're going to put sick people out on the streets. You can go by adjusting the cost of living index for Social Security, perhaps gradually raising the retirement age on Social Security. I wouldn't do it for Medicare, because those people still have to be taken care of. But doing other Medicare reforms, more efficiencies, you can go a long way towards addressing the issues that you raise. The problem is there's not a political will, because in order to do that politically, and I think this is the way the public feels too, you also have to add a little bit of revenue in there. It's not hard. That's not that painful. It ought to be done. It just is the political polarization dominates instead.
Stan, could the right Fed chair, could a new Fed chair be somebody to help grease this system that is so broken? And is that person Larry Summers?
I think we're out of the purview of Fed chair here, Stephanie. This is
This is a political problem?
A political problem, but everybody who's in D.C., no one seems to want to fix the problem. If you bring somebody in from left field on a completely different venue, could that help the situation?
No, I mean, Larry Summers, Janet Yellen, others already have a platform to discuss this issue if they want to. You don't need to be Fed chair. I really believe, and I'm probably naive, that if we get the facts out there and show them exactly how big the problem is the next 40 or 50 years, and show them the inequity in the system. I don't think most seniors know that they're getting this much more than their grandchildren and their great-grandchildren will get. We can get the political will.